Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jai Gopi Jannavalabha Girivardhani Yasodhanandana Braja Janaranjana Yasodhanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Pastatare Shatarine. Hare Krishna. Thank you again very much for coming this evening. And tonight we wanted to speak a little bit from the Srimad Bhagavatam. So before we start, we always like to chant one very nice shloka, and if everyone could please repeat. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnanajana Shalakaya Chakshumilitam Jaina Tasmai Sigurve Nama Sugam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Langayate Girim Madhkipitam Ande Siguram Dinataranam Paramananda Madhavam Sri Chaitanya Ishwaram. So, there's many things that can be said about the magnanimous and wonderful personality of Lord Shiva. And the Srimad Bhagavatam expresses these descriptions in very, very concise and loving way. There's a very nice little tune that sometimes we sing. Some may know it, some may not, but if you do, you can follow along. But it goes, Brahma bole chaturmukhe Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Mahadeva Panchamukhe Rama Rama Hare Hare Brahma Bole Chaturmukhe Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Mahadeva Panchamukhe Rama Rama Hare Hare. Basically, that melody is a very nice little tune. You can combine it, of course, with so many other wonderful Hare Krishna mantra verses and melodies. But the melody basically explains how Lord Brahma, with his 4 mouths, is always chanting Krishna, Krishna. And Lord Shiva, with his 5 mouths, with his Panchamukhe, he's chanting Rama, Rama. And he explains to his wife, there's a very nice conversation between him and Parvati, in which she and he were speaking about the Vishnu Sahasranam, the 1,000 names of Vishnu. They were discussing how auspicious it is to recite the names of Vishnu. Just like on some of our festivals, we have the Chaitanya Sahasranam, the Balaram Sahasranam, the Shringadev Sahasranam. These 1,000 names are very significant. They best describe the deity that we're engaged in worshiping. So the Vishnu Sahasranam has so many wonderful, wonderful names describing the potencies and glories and personality of Vishnu. And as they were discussing, Parvati said that, what if I can't chant those 1,000 names? For whatever reason, I may not be able to chant those 1,000 names. Can you give me some name which will be equivalent? And Lord Shiva replied, Rama, Rameti, Rameti, Rame, Rame, Manorame. Right? He said that this name of Rama especially is so powerful that when I chant it, I feel great joy. And we can experience that even in this material plane, this earthly plane, that when we chant the holy names of God, Krishna and Rama, you can experience some joy and some relief. So he tells Parvati, Rame Rameti Rameti Rame Rame Manorame Sahasranama Bistulyam Rama Rama Varanane. He says that by just chanting one name of Rama, it's equivalent to chanting those 1,000 names of Vishnu. It's so powerful. And this is significant because we're living in a world which is certainly filled with conflicts. When he says when he chants this name, he feels a great joy and satisfaction. And unfortunately, we're living in the material sphere. There are so many conflicts between the devas and the daityas, between those who are godly and those who are averse to the supremacy of God. And this conflict has been going on since time immemorial. And not just here. Urdvam gachanti sattvasta madhye tishtani rajasa jaganya guni brittiste adho gachanti tamasa there's different regions. And in all of those regions, whether it be in the higher planets, the earthly planets, or the lower hellish planets, there's always some kind of conflict. And sometimes even the heavenly residents and the hellish residents, they fight over the supremacy of the earthly plane. And so this conflict has been going on since time immemorial. And as a result, the relief or the opportunity to get away from the sufferings of material life, it's very complicated. Those devas and asuras, devas and daityas, they've been in constant conflict. And in one circumstance, in one occasion, the daityas had defeated the devas, and their leader, Bali Maharaj, was approached by King Indra, who, after consulting with Lord Vishnu, the devas, they always take shelter of Vishnu whenever there's some difficulty. So they approached Lord Vishnu and they asked him, "What can you help us from having been defeated recently by the daityas, headed by Bali? We're kicked out of our kingdom. We're without our wealth, etc. What to do? Can you help us?" So the Lord advised that what you need to do is you approach the daityas and you arrange for a truce. And in this truce, you propose that we have a plan whereby everyone can get whatever their wishes are. Whatever wishes they may have will be fulfilled. There's a plan. And that plan is to take Mandara mountain and churn it in the ocean of milk. Now, in the Vedic literatures, there's this description of different oceans, which is quite fascinating. That there are oceans of salt, there are oceans of sweet water, there's oceans of yogurt, oceans of ghee, oceans of honey, but there's also an ocean of milk. This is located in Svetadweep. So the Lord suggested that you get together with the daityas and you churn this Mandara mountain, and by its churning, whatever you want in life will be produced. But be careful that you don't get distracted. The goal is to produce an elixir of immortality, whereby everyone can have their lives improved and reawakened in the case of those who were defeated and may have been killed. So you get together with these daityas and you propose that we'll have this churning of Mandara mountain and all of our desires will be fulfilled. So they approached the daityas headed by Bali and proposed that let's take this mountain, we'll go to the milk ocean, and from its churning we'll have whatever life's desires are, they'll be fulfilled. So Bali Maharaj agreed. Okay, so let's call a truce and do this. And so they combined together and went for the mountain, Mandara mountain, and they began carrying it. they uprooted the mountain and began carrying it, which was quite a long distance to get to the Milk Ocean. And on the way, it got so heavy that they couldn't lift it any longer, and it just fell, crushing many of the carriers, and everyone was exhausted. We can't do what our plan was. This is it's totally defeated. So at the same time, the Lord appeared in the form of Vishnu on a Garuda, just like we have here. We have a beautiful deity of Garuda. So the Lord came in on Garuda, and he sprinkled water upon all the carriers who had been, some had been killed, some were exhausted, disappointed. So he sprinkled water in the form of rain, and they were all rejuvenated. And then he lifted the mountain very easily, and with one hand on the back of Garuda, he flew off to the Milk Ocean. And there at the Milk Ocean, he set the mountain down, and the Daityas and the Devas, they came with the help of Vasuki. They began to, as a rope, they began to churn this great ocean with the Mandara mountain. But as they were trying to attempt to, with this water, this churning, as they were working, all of a sudden the mountain fell into the sea and sunk. And just at that moment, who comes into the picture but the Lord again in the form of Kurmadev. It's described in the Vedic literature as Ramadi Murti Shukala Niyamena Tishtan. The Lord has many, many incarnations. And Matsya, Nrsingadev, and in this incarnation he came in as a tortoise. And we can understand from Vedic literatures that whenever the Lord appears, he appears for multiple reasons. Whenever he appears, he accomplishes multiple things. So the Lord came in and he lifted the mountain on his back. And if you've ever seen a tortoise swim in the water, is very, very graceful. So the Lord gracefully came up with the mountain, not in heavy, with some heavy weight, but very gracefully came up to the surface, and again encouraged the Daityas and the Devas to begin their churning. And his second purpose was that he had some itch on his back. So he wanted that relief. So at the same time, he's accomplishing so many things. So the Devas and the Daityas were doing their churning. And as they were churning, the first thing that came out was a poison, kala kala. And this poison was so toxic that even its fumes, one would fall unconscious. It was so terrible that it could destroy the universe. So seeing this, the demigods, led by Lord Vishnu, went to Kailash, where Lord Shiva resides, with his consort, Parvati. And they went to approach him and ask him, can you help us from this terrible situation? We're at a loss. We don't know how to deal with this. And began offering him various prayers. Now one question might arise, that why is it that Lord Vishnu is coming with the demigods to approach Lord Shiva, as if Lord Vishnu cannot manage it himself? No, quite the contrary. Lord Vishnu can easily deal with such problems very easily, since he's the creator. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But for different reasons, again, the Lord wants that his devotee be glorified, just as he does in Bhagavad Gita. The Lord could have easily defeated the Kauravas in the battle, but because he wanted to establish his devotees, Maharaj Yudhisthira, and establish the personality of his devotees, the Pandavas, he allowed them to be glorified. In the same way, he allowed Lord Shiva to be glorified. We can understand that Lord Shiva is non-different than the Lord, Supreme Lord. The Lord, Vishnu, when he comes into this world, it's not that he's of this world, but when he comes to do something in this world, he comes in the representative of Lord Shiva. So the Devas and the Daityas were approaching Lord Shiva and asked that he please help this situation. And the Lord Shiva, out of his mercy, because the Vaishnavas, we understand, are always compassionate. Vaishnavanam yata shambhu. The Vaishnavas are always compassionate to the conditioned souls in their suffering condition. And so he agreed that he would drink this poison. And in the drinking process, his throat would turn a bluish color. And we can understand that's how he gets his name of Nilakant. And in the process of drinking this terrible Kala, which was actually a large amount of a poisonous liquid, he condensed it into a simple palmful. And with that palmful, he drank it. And it's described that there were some drops that fell from his hand and onto the ground, and that was taken by the scorpions, snakes, and spiders. Hence we have such poisonous creatures. But after drinking that poison, it's described that Lord Shiva, he meditated some 60,000 years to counteract this Kala poison. It was such a toxic substance. And then the Devas and the Daityas were again able to continue with their journey. And the first thing that was produced after that churning, because again the Lord Vishnu explained to them that many wonderful things will come of this churning, but don't be distracted. Wait for the elixir. Don't be distracted by the wonderful things that may be produced by this churning. So as they began their churning process again, a cow, Surabhi, was produced. Beautiful gems were produced. So many beautiful, as Bhagavatam describes, beautiful apsaras were produced. And finally, the Lord came up in the form of Dhanvantari. Now, backing up a little bit, just earlier we were mentioning how heavy the Mandara mountain was, because it was made of gold. And we know gold is a very heavy metal. So it's interesting how it's related to Dhanvantari, that by churning of the ocean, Dhanvantari, who is the father of Ayurveda, And in Ayurveda, gold is a very important element in Ayurvedic medicine. So it's interesting how this Mandara mountain was churned, combined with milk and various herbs and minerals to produce the Ayurvedic science given by Dhanvantari. So Dhanvantari appeared with this elixir, and the demigods were focused on this elixir, while the Daityas were confused by all of the beautiful things and gems and so many other items that were produced of this churning. And at some point, finally, the Daityas realized that we're being cheated here. That this churning process has confused us. We're simply looking for temporary enjoyment instead of this immortal elixir. And they snatched away this the pot from Dhanvantari, and this leads into another pastime which involves Lord Shiva in the appearance of Mohini Murti. But this whole pastime is all about trying to understand how the devotees of the Lord, Vaishnavarkya mudra vigneya chabhujaya, sometimes they act that even intelligent persons cannot understand how these great personalities are acting. And they may criticize, just as sometimes people criticize how the associates of Lord Shiva may not be, his associates are ghosts and ghouls. Or he may be dressed in some animal skin, or he may have matted lock, or he has a necklace of skulls. And not knowing actually who he is. But he's actually the personality of Godhead acting in this material world. It's important to note that these criticisms are simply out of ignorance. That actually his personality is Atmaram. There's a very nice verse in the Bhagavatam, Atmaranas Chamunayo, that the Atmaramas, those liberated souls who they consider their service as not very important, but they simply do it. They're engaged in they're simply satisfied within themselves, and engaged in the loving service of the absolute truth. That's their only interest. But for themselves, they're not interested. And whatever they perform, whatever work they perform, whatever beneficial things they do for others, for these suffering living beings, they're simply doing out of a loving service to the Lord, not interested, not thinking that this is something important that I've done. There's a very nice conversation between Parvati and Lord Shiva, in which she's asking, what is the highest worship? And Lord Vishnu or Lord Shiva responds, Aradhananam sarvesham Vishnu aradhanam param. The highest worship is the worship of Lord Vishnu. But even higher than that, Tasmat Paratanam Devi Tadiyanam Samacharam are the devotees of the Lord. For that reason, we glorify Lord Shiva. Because he's a Vaishnava, he's a devotee of the Lord. And for that reason, we honor him as as a representative, as his only business is to help those who are suffering in this material world. There's a very nice verse in the Bhagavatam from this chapter that we were discussing today that says, Tapyante loka tapena sarvas prayaso jana paramanadadanam dhri, what is that? Paramananda mahadivi, Paramananda tad dhi purushas chakilatmana. And that verse is that it is said that great personalities almost always accept voluntary suffering because of the suffering of the people in general. This is considered the highest method of worshiping the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is present in everyone's heart. So sometimes these great personalities, they voluntarily take on these conditions, these situations, as Lord Shiva showed by his own example. So we're very fortunate to be here and be able to honor him on this most auspicious day. Shri Mahadeva Ki Jai. So right now I believe we're ready to start our bathing, and afterwards they'll be serving out a wonderful feast, so please stay with us tonight. Thank you. Hare Krishna.